listening to the GM Shuffle with Michael Lombardi, presented by DraftKings and VSiN.
Okay, it's the GM Shuffle. We do have breaking news as we kick off the program. Get to that in just a bit. The big guy, Michael Lombardi. I'm Patrick Meagher. Of course, Week 9 concludes tonight. The shorthanded 4-4 Bucs at the undefeated 7-0 Chiefs. Right now, that opener 10 down to 9, with the Chiefs obviously laying at 44.5 up to 45.5. But as we say hi on the program, drama. Just as your other show concludes, we open up the GM Shuffle. And Dennis Allen has been fired by the Saints after they are defeated as big favorites in Carolina, 7.5, 23-22. So Allen out in New Orleans. Michael, are you surprised?
You know, on the show today, I said yesterday was firing day in the NFL. There was a lot of games that were going to get coaches fired, and New Orleans was one of them. I mean, when you look at Patrick, when you look at that box score, it is, think about this. They outgained them by 150 yards. They ran the football for 150 yards, and they were positive in the turnover takeaway. The record of teams over the history of this great league that have done those three things is 275-0. And now it's 275-1. I mean, Dennis Allen did something that was just, you can't even imagine how bad it is. And look, I like Dennis. I think Dennis, we learned Dennis is not a head coach. He's a 34% win percentage. It failed at the Raiders for a lot of reasons. Some guys are better coordinators. Look, Steve Spagnuolo is a great defensive coordinator. I don't think he'll be a great head coach again, but he's a great defensive coordinator. I think there's nothing wrong with it. I mean, Richie Pettibone was a great defensive coordinator, horrible head coach. We've seen it a lot, right? But you could see Camaro's comments after the game. Well, the players believe in themselves, which didn't sound like that building was going really well. And to lose at home, to lose on the road is a 7-point favorite. Now, look, you know, you lay in bed with Derek Carr, you're gonna die with him too, right? I mean, like, this is a guy that's classic, right? I mean, it's just he doesn't win. The guy he looks really good. He's Ricky fucking Fowler is what he is. He doesn't win.
It's a good comparison. Allen, tell me a little bit about that, because it's almost we've seen Dennis Allen on the sideline for years with the Raiders, of course, and now took over after Peyton Less. It wasn't necessarily a heralded hire. I don't even really remember Allen talking. Why did he get this job? He won't get another job now. He'll be a coordinator. Tell us a little bit about Allen.
Well, I think Allen was, it was the best alternative because if you're Mickey Loomis, you're the president of the team, you're trying to keep continuity, right? You're saying, look, okay, we're losing a really good head coach. We know this, right? And so what's the worst thing? We want to stay with what we've been doing. We've been successful. And, I don't want to lose Dennis as a defensive coordinator, so I'll make him the head coach. We'll hire the offensive staff. We'll make Pete Carmichael the offensive head coach, basically, and let him run it and go from there. And then you're basically, what you're counting on is continuity. You're counting on, okay, everybody picks up a little bit of what Sean was doing, but that never works. I mean, it did work for Phil Bankston picking up for Lombardi, right? It just never, that continuity crap, you're better off tearing it down and starting over, right? You're saying, look, maybe this is the time we all have a clean break, right? Maybe we need someone in the building, right? We've seen it, right? Jimmy Johnson to Dave Wannstedt, Don Shula to Jimmy. I mean, it's just hard to do. It's hard to kind of replace it. And I think Dennis is in his world, he's basically a defensive coordinator. He sees that game through that lens. There's a broader picture that you have to take over, and I think we're missing it so badly. Today on the show, we talked about it. Do you realize how many 2-7 teams there are in this league? 1/3 of the league is 2-7, 3. I mean, it's horrendous. Yeah, I mean, I'm having one of the worst years picking games that I've ever had because I can't get a read on it. I really can. Like, I want to go. There's no upsets. Like, I thought Dallas would be a competitive team against Atlanta. They sucked. It wasn't. Dallas is terrible. They're 3-5, but they might as well be 3-30. But getting back to New Orleans, I mean, they're just not – they weren't good. There was no – now, look, I think Mickey Loomis has to assume responsibility. They went with Carr. I think there's a lot wrong with New Orleans. But I think, to me, there was – once you become on the side opposite of 275, you're going to get fired. I mean, but I said this today on my other show. I said this, Patrick, and I really mean this. I mean, look, it's going to be Jacksonville. Doug Peterson, you took him back on the trip, right? I mean, Las Vegas, we know they've already fired. We'll get to that in a minute. They've already fired coaches. Carolina's in the second year. I mean, Cleveland was abysmal yesterday. That was disgusting, right? We saw that. So I just think there's a lot of bad teams, a lot of bad coaching going on right now.
Yeah, it was a bloodbath in Hermosa Beach. Maybe Bella can loan Jeezy some of her food because I don't know if I can afford it. The favorites win 12-1 straight up, 9-4 ATS, the over 7-6. So you're right. There's a lot of bad football being played. Carolina picks up a win. Good for them. They're still a terrible football team. Allen is out. You know, it's interesting. While you were talking about that, and we're always talking about culture, the Commanders and Lions are just going to be used as benchmarks now. Like, this is, right. Look what Quinn's done. Look what Campbell's done. Look what the GMs have done respectively. People want to play for them now. You saw the report from Schefter. They want to go play for the Commanders. That's about the community, the character that's being built there.
Yeah, I mean, and look, there, you know, and they got the players playing at a higher level than they've ever played before. I mean, I'm not sure Washington's very good on defense, but no. Look, when you have the Giants going for 2, when they have no business going for 2, I mean, you talk about a bad beat. If you bet the Giants and took the 4, Dayball basically just took money out of your pocket, right? He goes for 2 twice, doesn't get it, he loses by 5. If he kicks field goals in both those situations, if he kicks extra points, he's down 3 with a chance to get the ball back, right? But, of course, naturally, why would we do that? Because this whole conversation's I'm going to be on a tangent today on this podcast on the stupidity that's going on in this goddamn league. It is bizarre. Why should Peterson get fired? I might as well get to that right now. Why wait?
Go for it.
I'm watching the game, Patrick. First of all, the 1:00 window, your early window out in LA was horrible. There was not a lot of good games. The Browns game sucked. There was some bad games, right? I mean, I know the Buffalo game, we'll get to that, was better, but the best game might have been Tennessee, New England, 2 shitty teams beating it out, right? So I'm watching the Eagle game, and all of a sudden, because Sirianni does some stupid things, the game's closer, like going for 2 when you have no business going for 2, right? You know, there's nothing worse than when Sirianni's acting cocky and he's in the lead. There's nothing worse than to watch that, right? Like, there's really nothing. It's like the kid.
He's jumping up and down.
Yeah, you know, like, I mean, like, you're never winning anybody over. The way he behaves when he's having a good run is disgusting to me. So, anyway, you know, so now I'm watching the game, and now the Jaguars are making their comeback, right? They got a chance. They get a penalty. They get a pass interference call on 3rd and 10. Huge call, right? Huge call. They got that. Then he throws another out. 1:42 to go in the game. Berman's sitting on the couch, right? We're watching the game, okay? I say to Berman, this is when Belichick would have said to Josh McDaniels, Josh, stick a run in here. 1:42 to go. Eagles will have 2 timeouts. Oh, no. What happens on the next play? Calls a wheel route, and it gets intercepted. Now, Lawrence takes the blame for it, right? Lawrence takes all the responsibility, shitty execution. No. This is what happened to Sam Darnold's career. Stupid play calling put the kid in a bad spot, right? Like, that should have been a run because he should have run the freaking ball. He's at the 13-yard line. He can get it. There's 8 plays left to go in the game. 8 plays, right? There's 1:42 on the clock. I've got 2 objectives here. I need to score, but I also need to take away timeouts, and I need to make sure that this kid, Elliott, who just missed a 57-yarder, doesn't have time to beat me with a field goal. How do I do that? You don't throw a fucking wheel route. I mean, and this guy's got a statue? I mean, this guy's got a fucking statue in the Eagle Stadium. I mean, how does that statue stay up? He hasn't visited it. I don't know how it doesn't get torn down. How do you give a coach this bad a statue? You know, I caught so much shit for calling him the most unqualified head coach that was ever hired. You know, at my prior place, they were all over that was too unfair. No, the guy got fired as the head coach after he won a Super Bowl 2 years later. He has no details to coaching whatsoever, none. And this game was the perfect example of it. He came back to Philly and said, here's my gift to you. I still can't manage a game.
Napoleon, Lincoln, Peterson. When I think statues.
Unbelievable. Rocky's got a fucking statue. Dr. J's got a statue, right? I mean, Billy Joel's got a banner in the arena because he sells out. Springsteen's got banners. This fucking guy's got a statue with Nick Folk. Two guys that are not doing anything right now.
Nick Folk.
He's got a fucking statue. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? And I'm watching the game, and this idiot calls a wheel route on the 13-yard line when he should have just run the ball. Just run the fucking thing. Right? Let the clock. Let's see what Nick's going to do here. Let's see what the analytical people up in the box tell Nick to do. You call timeout, Nick? You let the clock run? I mean, run it and challenge him. Let it go all the way down to 30 seconds and you call a timeout. You're trying to eliminate plays in the game at this point. You know you have 8. You don't want him to have many. But no, of course, what does he do? And then who takes the blame? The kid. And so naturally, it's the kid's fault. And then everybody in the building, well, Lawrence sucks. Yeah, he sucks when you put him in that position.
I thought he was good in the second half. I thought Lawrence was carrying them in the second half.
Well, yeah, but Dougie won't call any runs. I mean, he's got to carry them. I mean, he's behind. I mean, look, I think they have – look, there is no attention to we saw it on Saturday. I mean, James Franklin's 4 play calls – I know this is not a college pot – was the most brutal. Like, James, where are your gotta-have-it plays? Like, I mean, what you know what that tells you with James Franklin's play calling in the red zone? They don't practice situational football.
Yep. Now, that is a start to the GM Shuffle. We've got Dennis Allen out in New Orleans. We've got a statue of Dougie up in Philly. I don't know if in Vegas we're going to see an Antonio Pierce statue, but he's making moves with the Vegas
I'm
Raiders
ready for
as
that.
well.
Line me up.
Michael, he is pissed about what happened up in Seattle. We're coming back here. GM Shuffle, Week 9 tonight in Kansas City, Tampa Bay in town.
You're listening to the GM Shuffle with Michael Lombardi, presented by DraftKings and VSiN.
The GM Shuffle. Careful now, the big guy's fired up. Michael Lombardi, I'm Patrick Meagher. We talked about Dennis Allen not too long ago. He was fired. He gone after getting beaten Carolina's 7.5-point favorite. We now move to the Raiders, and this would be a good time to remind you, the Raiders did go to Baltimore. This is the NFL. They went to Baltimore early in the year and won a football game. Since then, nothing's happened. And here's a tweet, M. Lombardi NFL, to start the conversation. Quote, I hope Tom Brady can help the Raiders. You need to build a culture, a program, and get people aligned with leadership from the top. They may call themselves Raiders, but they are far from what AD Al Davis wanted and preached. Sad to watch. The Raiders were listless at Cincinnati. We can talk about the Bengals. 41-24. So what does your boy Antonio Pierce do? He turns around, fires Luke Getsy, the offensive coordinator, and, Michael, 2 others.
I mean, on the anniversary of after he fired Dave Ziegler, they fired Dave Ziegler a year ago, same time. They fired Josh McDaniels a year ago. They fired my son, Mick, which I don't have any hard feelings about that. I mean, obviously, I'm disappointed Mick lost his job, but to me, it's just so dysfunctional in that building. They have no leadership in the building, and it starts with Mark. I mean, look, if Mark idolized his father as much as he does, and I know he does, he reveres his dad. He doesn't behave anything like him. And he hires people that don't understand anything about the culture. I've said this repeatedly on this podcast. It hurts me. He listens to the way too many people. They have no attention to detail. They let the players run the program. Look, Max Crosby's the reason why they hired Max and Devontae Adams. They went to Max Crosby said, look, if you don't hire Antonio Pierce, you're trading me. I mean, now they're stuck with Antonio Pierce. I mean, this guy's no more qualified to be the head coach of Long Beach Poly, which he was and didn't win there at a prestigious high school program, than he is to be the head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders. I mean, to me, if Mark Davis gave me 20 minutes of time, I would tell him, Mark, look, you have to stop listening to thousands of people. The wisdom of the crowd's not going to work for you. Here's what you need to do. You need to go and channel your inner dad. You need to build this team. You need to find somebody who could come in here who can run from the top down. You need to replace your dad with somebody of authority, whether it's Kirby Smart, whether it's Bill Belichick, whether it's Mike Vrabel. I don't know who it is, but you better find somebody that you say, okay, this is what I believe in. Like you thought it was John Gruden, which it never was, which John is an offensive play caller. That's what John is. You can't let him run personnel. You can't let him do that. But find somebody that can do that and build a program. And build a program from the top down that's built on size and speed, that's built on work ethic, that's built on diligence, that's built on commitment to excellence. They're not committed to anything in Las Vegas. They're committed to change. That's what they're committed to. They're not committed to excellence. They're committed to change. They're like they behave like all bad organizations. Fire the coach, fire the offensive play caller, fire the defensive play caller. They haven't gotten any better since they fired Ziegler and McDaniel. Now, look, I'm not defending them because they made their mistakes, right? They made their mistakes. I don't think they had enough time, but the fan base was against him. He listened to his fan base completely. And he listened to the players. What did all the players say? We're working too hard. It's too tough. He's asking us to do too much. We don't want to do this. You don't know. So now in comes Antonio. Fellas, do whatever the fuck you want. Okay, let's have a party. Dairy Queen on everybody. And then now this year, because he can't tidy the ship up, they look like crap. They've gotten worse. They haven't gotten better. Who's that on? Is that on Luke Getsy? Is that fair to Luke Getsy? Is that fair to the line coach? I mean, you hired Antonio Pierce. You trust his judgment to hire these people? Right? Remember, Cliff Kingsbury came in and had the job and then left to go to Washington. He didn't want to be in this zoo, right? There's only one guy still remaining, Tommy Delaney, who was there. We hired Tommy Delaney out of the fucking pro shop. And all of a sudden, Tommy Delaney's now fucking running the whole goddamn thing. 2-for-1 deal out there coming out, you know? I mean, it's unbelievable. But he listens to Delaney. Why? I don't know. I don't know why he would listen to Delaney. Delaney's his eyes and ears in the building. So he's got everything going on. This building needs a cleansing. I said this for 3. They need an exorcism out there. They need to go out there and fucking tear it down. The next guy coming in, they go, if it's Scott Turner, I feel bad. Whoever gets the job, you're basically in a firing squad. What are you going to do? You going to fucking start where you go with Desmond Ridder? You going to go with Gardner Minshew? This is going to, I love when I watch Antonio Pierce taking fucking notes during the game, Patrick. It's hilarious. What are you writing?
Yeah, what's he writing down?
What are you fucking writing? I mean, so it's bizarre. It's exactly why I've always wanted to do a podcast called How I Destroy This, because Mark is destroying an institution. He's destroying it, and he thinks he's making it better with change.
So let me ask you this. He's paying, and I'd like to defend Mick Lombardi. Bright man. Those, I don't believe, I'll just say, I'll leave it there. I don't think they had enough time. Okay, so let's move on. They're paying McDaniels. They're paying, will Mark Davis, he has to move on from Antonio Pierce. That is not a question. Is he going to? Will he pay him out and just cleanse it? Telesco, the rest of them, move on.
He has no choice. To me, if you hired Tom Brady, I mean, could you imagine? I would love to have an NFL film crew go out to practice to watch Tom Brady talk to Antonio Pierce about game management, situational football, and how to build a team. I would pay dearly for that. Tom should be the fucking head coach. They make Tom the president of the team, and then let Tom just do whatever he can do. Now, obviously, Tom's making way too much money doing Fox to do that, but maybe Tom could put somebody in. Look, you've already fired Josh McDaniels. They've already, so this whole idea that you're going to bring Belichick in is a joke, because Belichick's too fucking smart. I mean, he's already seen the players resist any accountability. He's already seen the players run to Mark Davis to complain about how hard it is. You think he's going to want to go in there and say, okay? Of course not. I mean, that's ridiculous. But you need somebody who's going to hold them accountable. It's comical. And you can say, well, they don't have a quarterback. This has been going on now forever. I mean, you go back to Hugh Jackson. I mean, how many coaches are you going to go through? You picked Antonio Pierce to be your head coach. He was the linebacker coach. Here's the telltale sign. They're worse on defense than they were last year. Does anybody know why that is? Does anybody know why that is? Because last year, McDaniels spent a lot of time with Patrick Graham. making sure that Patrick was kind of doing what he does well. Because Patrick is a good coach, but left alone, Patrick will get into too much shit. Everything's got to be managed by people, right? It's James Franklin. You let your offensive play caller call 3 runs into the fucking line of scrimmage. You're not managing people. You're not leading people. You're just letting them run. Well, Josh was trying to help out Patrick Graham, and they responded with a better defense. They got players that like the game. Look, again, I'm not defending them, but now left on their own without any help at all, that defense is a sieve. It's horrible. See, that's the job of a head coach. The job of a head coach is to watch the program, come in after practice and say to the defense coordinator, look, I think that's really fucked up. We need to do this, this, and this. Or the offense coordinator, look, I don't like that look because I think they're going to do this. And the special teams coach, I think we're going to do it. You think Antonio Pierce can have these conversations? No. Of course he can. So what do you have? You have a bunch of subcontractors. So now you got somebody coming in. I mean, Dan Campbell brings the philosophy of what he wants. He wants tough guys who are going to run the ball. Okay, great. Mike Tomlin brings the philosophy. He hires coaches, but he coaches the coaches. To coach the coaches, you got to have experience and knowledge to coach the coaches. They got to respect you. Like, you think anybody in that building thinks they should be the head coach if Antonio Pierce is the head coach? Wait a minute. It's like, I know more football than he knows. Why the fuck is he the head coach and I'm not? Right? That's what they're all saying. Not publicly, but that's what they're saying.
It's funny, too, because you and I you've been there. They've got in Henderson, Nevada, they've got these beautiful practice facilities, brand new, state-of-the-art. They've got a brand new stadium over here, and they're just kind of floating. There's
they're never going anywhere.
Yeah.
They're never going to, because he can't hire the right person. He doesn't know what he's looking for. He listens to Ken Herrock. He listens to the wrong people. And maybe he doesn't even, it's not fair for me to say that because maybe he doesn't even listen to him. He hired a general manager who loves small school college players. Tom Telesco, wonderful guy, but has nothing to do with the Raiders. He couldn't build a team in his father's image to save his, he wouldn't know. Al would give up, he's not taking some guy from some podunk school. He wants size and speed. I mean, they built a program on nothing. I mean, it's really sad, and I feel badly because I'm not a Raider hater. I really identify with the team. Again, I don't harbor any bitterness about what they fired my 2 sons. That's part of this business. But the reality of the business is you're the owner. You got to hire somebody who can be the chief figure-out officer, and it ain't Antonio Pierce. And you're throwing these deck chairs off the Titanic. Now you're just adding more debt to your team. The problem with Mark Davis is he's rich. He'll go through money. He's rich, so he's just impulsive. I mean,
is that what it is? Let me stop you there. Is Davis? You know him. You knew his dad. What's the characteristics there as far as will he be impulsive? Will he make this move? Will he be willing to spend the money to move on from Pierce?
Oh, I think there's no question he's willing to spend money. He just spends it recklessly. He spends it ridiculously. He wastes money. He's got all these coaches on he gave Josh McDaniel a 6-year contract, fired him after 1.5 years. And wanted him to trade Derek Carr, hated Derek Carr, wanted Carr out of the building, and then they're left with nobody, and then they fired him. Well, that was Josh's fault. Because if you're going to get rid of Carr, you better make sure you have a replacement. Then they don't sign Stidham. Not that Stidham would have been the answer, but then they let Stidham go to Denver. How stupid does that look, right? I mean, that didn't look good. And then you got Jalen Carter sitting you right in the face of the defensive tackle, and you take some kid with a bad foot. How's that make you look? Like you signed Devontae Adams, who's you signed Devontae Adams, and he comes in and undermines your team because he's not getting the football. What do you think was going to happen? I mean, you've known me long enough to know that you can't sign a receiver when you don't have all the other things in place, or else the guy's going to tear your team apart, which is what he did.
To be fair, they do have Desmond Ridder, who replaced Gardner Minshew.
Yeah, I mean, there you go. We got Desmond Ridder. But I'm told reliably that they signed Gardner Minshew. None of the coaches even knew they were going to sign him. That was all Telesco. That's how dysfunctional is. Maybe Delaney knew. Of course, he was probably working in the pro shop, going back up, selling jackets. I don't know.
Hey, so common sense, not so common in the NFL. If you think Michael's pissed about the Raiders, he's not happy with the Seahawks because they were turning down points yesterday in a very, winnable game against the Rams. We'll get to that coming back. GM Shuffle Week 9 concludes tonight. Kansas City hosting the Bucs. We're back.
You're listening to the GM Shuffle with Michael Lombardi, presented by DraftKings and VSiN.
Welcome back to the GM Shuffle, presented by Smirnoff. We do game days. Please drink responsibly. The Smirnoff Company, New York, New York. Michael Lombardi, I'm Patrick Meagher. GM Shuffle, it's a good one today. It's juicy. Of course, Week 9 tonight, Kansas City hosting the Bucs. It's sitting on 9 right now with Kansas City laying it. Okay, so common sense, not so common in the NFL. The Seahawks have got to be bitter today. And I'll just give you a couple tweets. Yeah. The NFL has lost its mind. M. Lombardi NFL. Seattle turns down points and will lose. Unexplainable. Seattle Seahawks, you have no one to blame but yourself. That red zone, whatever that was in the red zone, whether it's the pick six from Geno or the turning down points, that was a disgusting display by the Seahawks.
No question. Okay, let me just read you what Sean McVay said about it. What a unique, weird game that was. What a job by our group to come away with that win. He knows he stole a win. I mean, he's no different than Clyde Parker just went to the bank and ripped him off. I mean, he knows he stole a win out of there. But this problem that Seattle had. Now, look, Geno Smith's interceptions, get that, right? I've been saying this about Seattle's coaching. Pretty much they're inexperienced, they're young, they're going to get better. I like John Schneider a lot. I think he's a really good general manager. I like Mike McDonald a lot. I think he had a chance to be a good coach. But, man, there's growing pains. But this game was lost, and it was lost on August the 22nd, 2013, when the great Bill Barnwell wrote Momentum Doesn't Exist. And he wrote it in two parts. And I would say it's probably about a 25,000-word, 2 columns that he wrote, that basically he doesn't believe in momentum. That momentum is some fabricated idea that we, the old white guys, have come up with to justify being conservative in sports. Right. That's what he wrote, basically. And he's got numbers to back it up, too. You know, the play calling, but he's got it all, right? He does it, but if you've ever worn a jockstrap in your life, you know momentum exists, right? Mm-hmm. You know that there's a certain level of player has that the player can reach another level. So what happens in this game is your decision to follow this August 13th column in Grantland, which no longer exists. It's now the Ringer, but you can still find the articles online. You should read the article. It's a long litany of why you want to be stupid. Okay. And so when you don't think momentum exists, then it's easy for you to make the decision to go for it on 4th and 1 because you don't really give a fuck about the result. You say momentum doesn't, so we'll just stop them. Now, if Woolen would have caught the interception, maybe they would have. But the reality of it is if you kick it, your team's juiced. We get 3 and out, or we get a 4 and out, where we win the game. You don't kick it, your team's depressed. What do you do about that? See, the analytical people who don't believe in momentum, because they can't believe in momentum, because you can't measure momentum in their equation to say go for it. Which goes back to this is when the NFL turned to shit right here. Because there's a lot of people like Barnwell that believe this bullshit. They believe that momentum doesn't exist. They believe you should do it. We saw the crimes going on in Philadelphia, going for 2 when they have no business. We saw it in New York. Brian Daboll's going for 2, and he would have been down by a field goal. All he would have been down. These turning down points. I've never seen it to this magnitude. Now, Seattle did it in the afternoon. Tennessee is only Tennessee could do. They had a 3rd and 1 from the Patriot 5-yard line. Of course, they fuck up the snap, and they don't get it. And now they kick the field goal, okay? They kick the field goal. And what happens? Drake May they catch one of Drake May's interceptions. On the drive before, Patrick, Drake May threw them 2 interceptions. They dropped them, or else they cover by 7. They win the game. So it's one of those games you handicap the right way, but you lose because I gave out 3.5 on Russo. Okay, I'm not trying to justify my mistake. I'm just saying sometimes you handicap the game the right way and you lose. That's just part of this business. But the reality of this stupidity of going for 3, Seattle dominated this game. To be as bad as they were in the margins in terms of takeover, to then take the game away from you because of this stupid decision, all based on momentum doesn't exist.
It was the idea, the momentum, it's nebulous. So when somebody like a Barnwell, I'm not killing the kid, but when somebody writes an article like that, you can't measure momentum, so it doesn't work with the equation. But if you're watching the flow of a game, have a feel for a football game. Those points matter at that point.
Yeah, you keep your team alive. As Belichick would say, what we're trying to do is keep our team in the game till we get to the fourth quarter. Maybe we can find a way to win it in the fourth. But to make that decision to take the game away, and then people are going to complain about the call. I'm not complaining about the call. I think the call was horseshit, but that's not the reason I'm talking about it.
Right.
I'm complaining about the theory of the thing. Like, to me, I don't understand where Mike McDonald sits in his office today and says, I made the right decision. Because what I did was I took the heart out of my team. I'm playing good on defense. I'm playing really good. Puka's not in the game. Cup averaged under 10 yards a catch. He ain't beating me. I mean, all I got to do is get a sack. If I get him in a 2nd and 15, 2nd and 17, I got a chance to win the game. What happened with a tip ball up in the air? I win the game. Like, why not give myself that chance? Why do I have to win it on one play? Kick the field goal. Now, if I missed the field goal, what do you think would have happened? Same thing had happened because when I missed going for it. What happens when you miss a field goal? The momentum shifts, right? Because there is fucking momentum in the game.
Turnover.
That's the point. And these people that tell you to go for it, these morons that tell you to go for it, that sit up in the box, they go home on Sunday night and they're just as happy as can be. They'll sit there. They'll probably fucking play with their computer, work on numbers. They're happy as shit. They don't give a fuck. They never tell you. It's like what Nick Saban says. They never tell you what you're supposed to do after it fucking fails. They never tell you that. They never tell you it. Right? I mean, just think about it. They never say, well, if we don't get this, like I would have been in the box saying, if we don't kick the field goal here, we'll lose momentum and they're going to score. I said it I was sitting on the fucking couch. They just lost the game here. You say, well, they could have stopped them. No, their fucking players didn't believe in it at that point. The players, here's the thing I don't understand. Why are more people, you can answer this, why are more people copying the Brendan Staley method of coaching and not the Andy Reid method of coaching?
I'm watching Seattle, and I'll throw two more names in, and one was coaching. Those are the games that McVay, even though he's young, but he's still a little old school, you know this, and Tomlin and Reid, they win those games in Seattle. The new coach that's listening to the kid up top with the backpack and the Schwinn and the computer, they lose those. What's the point? Are you trying to win this football game, or are you trying to make the right call from the sheet? At times, it just gets so convoluted.
It's so bad. I mean, it makes no sense to me at all. It drives me insane. Like, Mike, you got to stand in front of your team. Brendan Staley lost the credibility of his team. He lost the team because of all his stupidity. Now, nobody will say that, but when you lose 61 to something to the Raiders, I mean, obviously you lost your team. And this one here is one of those that you have a hard time coming back from. And he has a quote, well, I believe in the players. No, you don't. You don't believe in your defense because if you kick the field goal, you don't believe your defense could stop them on 4 plays? They got to still make the field goal. They still have to make the field goal. Like, it made no sense at all. But this is an epidemic that's going on because these people that are up in the box they're making these decisions based on what? Like, okay, did the guy who said go for it on 4th down, if you want to go for it on 4th down, here's what I want to hear. Okay, let's go for it on 4th down. We got a really good play. They'll never get it. We'll walk in the end zone. It'll be a touchdown. Got it. Okay, what's the play? We practiced it all week long. We did it 3 times on Wednesday. We did it 3 times on Thursday. We got this play. We'll know they'll line up in this look. They'll give it. And if they don't give us that look, we'll call timeout. We'll kick the fucking field goal. Okay, I'm on board on that. I'm on board because you know why I'm on board on that? Because the players watched that play in practice. They saw it work in practice. They believe in the play. They're with the play. They get it. They understand it. But no, let's just run a fucking weak side lead off the fucking left tackle. We can't block anybody the whole fucking day. I mean, does that make any sense to you? James Franklin, I'm going to run 3 lead plays into the fucking line of scrimmage. Oh, that's brilliant, James. You're making $10 million a year for that? See, to me, it's like, okay, what's my got to have it play? Here's what I would have said. If I would have been James Franklin at that game in front of the fourth largest stadium in the history of the world, I would have said to the offense coordinator, first down, I want you call whatever you want. Second down, I want our best play. Third down, I want our second best play. Fourth down, I want our third. I want our best 3 2-point plays we have, whatever they are. We practice them. The team knows them. That's what I want. All right, that's what I want. I want to run this, this, and this. That's what I do all week long. I practice situational football in my head so that when it comes time, I tell you, here's what we want. This is why I'm called the head coach, right? Here's what we want. I'm not called the head coach to let you decide on what fucking play we're going to run that we didn't even practice. That's not what my job is. My job is to coordinate this. That's why I'm the head coach. That's why you're an assistant coach, because I prepared the team for situations like this. And you know what happens? The team knows it. Because on Friday or Saturday night, hey, when we got to have a play, here's what we're going to run. We got to have a play. Here's what we're going to run.
Seattle, you're on the list. We'll start this conversation, come back and wrap. By the way, so trade deadline is we record GM Shuffle November 4, tomorrow at 4. Trade deadline NFL, and are the Cowboys going to be sellers? So they fall to 3-5. I don't know if the Falcons are good at 6-3, but they just beat the Cowboys 27-21. Prescott and Lamb both got injured.
Yeah, I know the Cowboys are. I know the Cowboys are bad. That I do know. I mean, look, and there's no one to blame for the Cowboys, but this is one of those where the design is bad. This is the Etzel. The Cowboys are the Etzel, right? The design's just fucking bad. The car ain't gonna sell. Like, they just don't have enough, right? They go with Zeke, the running game. The defense isn't good enough. Like, you can blame McCarthy all you want. He'll take the fall for it. But this is a badly designed team. They lost all their depth to Washington. They don't have any cap room. Look, you can fire McCarthy, great. But you better make sure you bring somebody in that can fix the problems. And the problems are personnel related. I said last year, this team overachieved. They didn't underachieve.
If you had on your GM Shuffle bingo card James Franklin, Edsel Ford, and Nick Folk taking shots today, you win.
I meant
Edsel
Ford, but
no, it's better. I assure you. Edsel Ford in the chat. Oh, for growing up in Detroit, that's a name we don't want to discuss. We're going to come back. GM Shuffle continue with the Cowboys. The Lions are a wagon, and the trade deadline tomorrow.
Oh, Big GM Daddy Shuffle. Too. We got his comments.
Oh.
You're listening to the GM Shuffle with Michael Lombardi, presented by DraftKings and VSiN.
GM Shuffle, Michael Lombardi, I'm Patrick Maher. We welcome you back. Just quickly, we talked about the Cowboys, whether or not they're going to be buyers, sellers tomorrow for the trade deadline. Let's go back to a team that's under the radar. The Falcons are sitting 6-3. I have no read on Atlanta right now.
Well, I mean, look, they got 3 sacks yesterday. They actually this tells you how bad Dallas's offensive line's playing. They had 3 sacks on them. Dallas couldn't protect on them. They blitzed. They to me, I think if you watch this game, Atlanta had no respect for Dallas's offense, especially vertically. They were like, you can't beat us down the field. We're just going to keep going after the pocket. We're going to sack the quarterback. We'll bring every blitz known to mankind, and you can't do a fucking thing about it. They bitch slapped them. And I give Atlanta credit. They're 6-3. I mean, they're winning these games. I thought for sure in the old NFL, I thought Dallas could muster up and play better. I thought Dallas would score. I thought it was an over game, but it wasn't.
Yeah. How about this one? Where were the Bears in the desert yesterday? Eberflus is going to take some today. That was, as far as not showing up, the Cardinals, and they're impressive. They cashed the 1.5 easily. Beat the Bears 29-9. Watched this game, bet this game. I was on Arizona. I never felt like I was in trouble. The Bears team just didn't post.
I mean, it was really remarkable. They won. The Cardinals have won 3 straight. They're in first place. It's their first 3-game win streak since they started 7-0 and 21. I mean, they really give Jonathan Gannon credit. I mean, they're really good. James Conner's so really good. I mean, he runs it so well, but they just beat up on him. I mean, look, they went right after Caleb Williams, and they know that they couldn't protect. I mean, they know that since the bye week, Caleb Williams is 0-2. He's at under 50% completions. He averages 174 yards per game. He's got a passer rating of 65. And the real trouble is, Patrick, is he's been sacked 4.5 times. He can't fucking get, they can't get any pressure. He can't protect him. Again, he throws it 41 times. You take away Swift, and all of a sudden, you got real issues. They can't run. They have no offensive line. I've been saying this forever. Like, at some point, and I know the Bears, this is the best offensive line we had in years. I mean, they just don't. What shocked me about this game was how bad they were on defense, the Bears. I mean, how bad were they? I mean, Kyler only had to throw it 20 times. He didn't really have to make a play in the game. They had two backs. They gained 213 yards on the ground.
Yeah, they ran all over the Bears. It's not great. It's not a great look.
I think this offensive coordinator for Arizona, Drew Petsick, I think he does a really good job. He does a really good job. What I really like about Petsick is he spends time on the run game. Like, he finds ways, and each week it's a different run game.
Creative runs, too.
He finds ways to run the ball.
Creative, too. Like, it's a creative run. I totally agree. That stood out to me.
And he knows if he drops back to throw it. He knows if he can't protect. He knows his weaknesses. He knows the quarterback needs to move around. I mean, look, could you imagine if I would have told you that Kyler Murray throws for a 154, he has 2 runs for 6 yards, what would you say the score would have been?
Yeah, you think the opposite. But 29-9, and again, they were never – I don't love the offense for the Bears. It does feel like Williams is constantly trying to bail him out. He doesn't look comfortable in the offense at all.
They have no toughness. They're on the Zach Taylor program. They have no toughness. It's like watching Tennessee. I'm watching Tennessee against the Patriots, and I'm like, Brian, you don't have Joe Burrow. You got Mason Rudolph. You need to get in some two-back stuff. You need to get physical. Your offensive line isn't good enough. Like, your dad can run the ball. Like, we got to change. See, this is what drives me crazy. Like, we want to run the Burrow system. You don't have Joe Burrow. You got to figure out what system we can run. That's what you get paid to be a head coach. That's why somebody who's not calling the plays walks in and tells the coordinator, look, fuck that. We're not running that shit. Throw that out. We're done with that. Here's what I want to do.
Hey, quickly, your team growing up, the Redskins/Commanders, I'll just say this. Jaden Daniels is special. They're 7-2, first time since 96. They just swept the Giants. We don't need to see more. He may get injured, but this Daniels is special. He's going to be tremendous.
He's really good. I mean, and look, and their defense has got, I think what you see there with them is they practice. Their defense have gotten better. I mean, Daniel Jones was negative passing yards in the game in the first half. He was 0 passing yards at halftime. I mean, it's the first starting quarterback since 1991 to have 0 or fewer yards passing in the first half. Think about that. Think about that, Patrick. I mean, and in this game, in the second half, he had his highest quarterback rating since week 17. I mean, this offense is a joke. All off season, they talked about protecting the quarterback, and it's the first time they scored 20 points since week 5 of last year when they scored 29 in Seattle. I mean, think about it. This is a horse and buggy offense, and they can't cover. We know that. They can't cover anybody. The Giants are a mess. They are a mess. And don't take anything away from the Commanders because they do it every week. They've been just coming in there and playing, and McLaurin's come to life. Rodriguez Jr., he was good. I mean, they were all good. McDaniels' quarterback rating. Think about his quarterback rating over the first 9 starts is Kurt Warner was 117.8. This kid's 106.7.
No, he's spectacular. In control. Calm. You love what you see from Daniel. 7-2 for the Commanders. It's time for the GM Shuffle NFL Week 9 awards, and we're going to start with the DraftKings crowning moment. You've got the Panthers, and they beat the Saints. Maybe you could repeat what you said at the top, which is the Saints somehow lost a game where they dominated.
Right. The Saints lost a game where they outgained their opponent by 150 yards. They had 150 yards rushing, and they won the turnover takeaway column. And there were 275 teams in the history of the NFL that had those numbers, and they were 275-0 until yesterday, until they got a win. I mean, look, I don't know. That's why Dennis Allen's unemployed today. You feel bad for the guy. I'm sure he'll be somebody's defensive coordinator next year. There's no question. But they just couldn't get it going.
Let's get to the fraud of the, if you're just joining, or it's a podcast, so you know. Dennis Allen, he gone. Fraud of the week. How about that Browns defense?
I was counting on them to be good. They blew 3 coverages in the game. They were beating the shit out of Justin Herbert. They knocked him around. Myles Garrett took Joe Alt and just drove him back into the quarter. It was unbelievable. But they blew 3 coverages. I mean, they just give up. When you give up, the worst thing for any defense coordinator is to give up free access touchdowns, which means you drop the guy in coverage and it basically is a high school game. And that's what the Browns did. And then they couldn't do anything offensively. That's where I really did a bad job of handicapping this game. I misjudged how good. I thought when you break the numbers down, I thought you could move the football on them. I mean, Arizona moved it on them a little bit. I thought the Browns would be able to, but the Browns losing Callahan really hurt the Browns and their offensive line. It's just not the same. And now their season's over. And Winston became the Winston that we know and love.
We do. I don't know. Some of those balls he was tossing up. YOLO. The Freddie Palermo.
Could have thrown 8 interceptions.
Oh, and obviously the game before, the pick to end the game should have happened with the Ravens. Anyway, Fred Palermo, best game plan. Who had the best game plan?
I thought Arizona did. I mean, they ran the football, they controlled it, they played a tough game, and I think they beat the shit out of the Bears. I mean, you got to wonder. I mean, the Bears are celebrating going to the playoffs. Are we sure they're good? Because I just read you Caleb's numbers. They can't run the ball really against. Now they got to, when they play Green Bay or they play Minnesota or they play Detroit, how do they win those games? I mean, we have 9 games left. They have 6 of them against those teams. They haven't played any. I don't think they've played any of those games, have they?
No, I don't believe so. Either way,
I don't think the Bears.
No,
go ahead.
Well, trying to think. No.
I'm going to look it up right now. I don't think they have. Their 4 wins have come against really bad teams.
Bad teams. Yeah, the Bears have only won. They've only beaten bad teams.
They haven't played anybody. They have to play. They've got New England this week. Then they got Green Bay, Minnesota, Detroit, San Francisco, Minnesota, Detroit, and Green Bay again. So they only have, of the remaining games, they have New England, Seattle, and San Francisco.
Yep, brutal. Eberflus going to lose the job there in Chicago. On the lam, no surprise here, you've got the Raiders and Saints.
Yeah, I just feel so bad for the Raiders. I really do. It's just sad. It's just what it shows you is there's nobody who knows what they're doing running it. There's nobody who knows what they're doing running it. You just can't keep firing and accumulating debt on coaches to think your job is to solve the problem. I hire Antonio Pierce. He solves this problem. Oh, if he doesn't solve it, I'm screwed. See, no one ever asked the question, what would have to be true for this to be right? Like, if I were Mark Davis and I hired Antonio Pierce, what would have to be true for Antonio Pierce to be a great coach? I don't know. Too much would have to be. I would have to get a great offensive coordinator. I have to get really great players.
If you don't know, now you know. What do we know?
We know that there's a lot of bad teams out there, Patrick. I mean, and I don't know who. I mean, I think Carolina's going to have the first pick in the draft, but I don't know who. Look, let's just go through it. Tennessee, Miami, 2-6. Cleveland, Jacksonville, Las Vegas, New England, 2-6. There's 6 teams out of 16 in the AFC that are 2-6 or worse. Okay, that's 6. Carolina, New Orleans, the Giants. That's 10. Put the Cowboys in there. That's 11. 1/3 of the league sucks. 1/3 of the league sucks. And that doesn't even count the Jets.
Not the Lions. Big Daddy. I felt for you yesterday, bro. The Lions played outside, and Goff was bitter in that post. This is a team that's on a mission, and they can run the football. They can pressure the quarter. Love had a terrible. You saw the pick where he just threw it up in the air for the pick 6.
Oh,
loved it.
Look, they're good, and they're
very
good. They're
good.
Embracing it. They're embracing it. They're a team that knows they're good, and they impose their will. They know they have momentum. There is a thing called momentum, and they know they can get it.
Crowning Moments is presented by DraftKings. DraftKings, the crown is yours. Are you laying the 9 with Kansas City tonight with the Bucs?
I would typically do that. Kansas City's not a great cover team. I don't think they would. I just worry about, do we have enough off? Baker's got to play perfectly.
Michael Lombardi, you had a busy day. Enjoy it. I'll see you Thursday on the GM Shuffle.
Yes, sir.
Okay, get back to Bella. We'll see you Thursday. GM Shuffle.